So Gareth is an IT technical enablement veteran. For the last 15 years, he has been with Veritas, Symantec then, again Veritas. Before working at Veritas, he was at Sybase. In the far distant past, he has worked as an IT analyst with extensive experience in infrastructure IT, producing technical messaging, white papers, articles, presentations, and education deliverables. In addition, he is a technical author for John Wiley and Sons Incorporation with books like Data Lifecycles, Managing Data for Strategic Advantage, and Data Leaks for Dummies. And with Smart Questions, thinking of backing up data in your business? These are his books. He has worked extensively across EMEA and global roles in technical support, product management and marketing, technical authoring, business development and quality management. Acknowledged by his customers and colleagues as a valued member of a team that understands business requirements across international markets, he has the ability to take complex product solutions and ensure that they can be understood by all, from the sales force to customers, from CEOs to IT administrator. Something that's not written here. It just struck me that, we keep talking about how technical writers are now being called technical communicators. This is the bigger picture that we need to have, all of us. End-to-end business scenario, understanding our role in it, and creating that content experience, a homogeneous content experience for our users. So I think, yes, we are definitely going to look forward to your keynote address. He can capture the essence of new products and features and explain them in simple and memorable ways, tying the technology to business problems and solutions. We are really looking forward to your keynote address, Gareth. Before that, one small announcement on behalf of Veritas. Veritas has given some leaflets. So these are the leaflets. These are the leaflets. You have to fill in all your data and give it at the Veritas stall, and you'll get this cap immediately. Okay? And then you actually qualify for a raffle, and you can win this bag, a laptop bag. It's a very cute and neat bag, so go for it. Gareth's books are also available at Veritas stall. You can have a look at them. Do visit the stalls, all the stalls of all the sponsors. Take a look at what they are offering and get benefited from their offers. Gareth, over to you.
Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that frets and struts his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Does anybody recognize that? Who was it who wrote that? Anybody? No one knows that was Shakespeare. I don't believe you. Who studied Shakespeare at school? Anybody study Shakespeare at school? I appreciate that it's not best unless you hear it in the original Klingon, apparently. Yes, that was William Shakespeare. Even if you haven't studied Macbeth, there's a chance that you might go, okay, that's got to be an English writer, that might be Shakespeare, because that's the only guy that I can think of from the 16th century. But the thing is about it is that he's very distinct. You can hear his voice. It doesn't matter whether it's Macbeth or it's to be or not to be, Hamlet. Or as flies to wanton boys are we to the gods, they kill us for their sport. King Lear. I can keep doing this all day. You're going to show this video? It's on the laptop. There's nothing on the laptop. Sanjay, come help me out here. Here we go. I can't see anything on the laptop, by the way. So this is my family. I can't see the videos, so thank you very much. This is my family, so I'd like you to introduce them. They're a musical family. My wife's a very smart lady, actually. She's one of the only people I've ever met who can actually read a book and then do something physically. So she learned to drum by reading a book about it, which is very strange. But they're all musicians. But has anybody here got children? Anybody got children? So yeah, great. So anybody got 2 children? Right, and the rest of you, you know what they are, don't you? They're small people wandering around. Yeah. Good. Anybody with 2 children, the one thing I can have a bet with you is the one thing that is absolutely true is that they are completely different. I had this insane idea before we had children that there were going to be composite parts. That's not supposed to have happened. And this isn't working either. There we go. I had this insane idea that it were going to be composite parts of me and my wife, and that every time they do something, you could then turn around and go, "Ah, that's you, that is. That child behaving badly, that were you." But they're not. They're completely individual. They've got their own personalities, and I never said that could happen. You know, I'm the father, I'm supposed to, you know. But they are completely different. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about today. So I quote you Shakespeare because it's very, very distinct. It's a language that's very, very distinct. And by the way, we've got a much worse job than Shakespeare ever had. Because we now got at least 6 times as many words that we have to grapple with today than Shakespeare did, you know, back in the day. And the other thing I want to talk to you about is diversity. The diversity of human nature, the diversity of the people in here. I believe that there is no such thing as stupidity. I think that there are people who are badly educated. I think there are people that are misguided. I think that there are education systems out there that are dysfunctional. But I don't think there are stupid people out there. I think there is a place in the world for everybody. So, that was me. I just want to talk to you a little bit about my background with India. I was first out here in 1987. Some of you probably weren't even born then. So anyway, in 1987. And I've been coming back regularly ever since. Now, since 2009, we've had a team together, which is great. We've made that team global, pretty much. And so I come out there here fairly regularly, notwithstanding the fact that I work for an American company, so I get dragged out to the States every 10 minutes. So I just very, very quickly want to talk to you about what my experience was. What was my timeline? How did I get from here, from when I was a kid to where I am now? And it was a very interesting transition. You see that? Yes. So I was sent off to school when I was 6. I'd lived with my grandparents, you know, boarding school. Off you come back in 3 months. No. Sorry about this. It keeps. Maybe I should abandon it and just stand here. There we go. Do you want to get rid of that? Okay. So I was sent off to school when I was 6, and I discovered that I was good at sport. I think that's what schools do. They train you from the ground up, don't they? So by the time you get to about 15, they're focused on your head. But before that, they say, you know, go kick a ball around. And I discovered I was really good at cricket. And I'm wearing a tie, very surprisingly, because I don't normally do this. I'm wearing a tie especially for you guys, because I know you're all cricket fans. Cricket fans? Yeah? So this is a Somerset staff tie. You know? I was on the Somerset staff from 1973 to 1979, I think. And people asked me, so did you play with Ian Botham? And I've got a feeling I might have done, but I can't remember. You know, part of that, swathes of my life are just a blur. But yes, so, but I wasn't that good. And one of the things I discovered was that I was what they call a late developer, they call it. I was dyslexic. And as a writer, you think, he's got dyslexia, that's a bit of a hang-up. And yes, it was. It was a massive hang-up. But, you know, I was benignly steered away from sports, which I almost did exclusively at school, by the teachers who said, you won't get a good job doing that. So I then forced myself down that route of going down the academic route. And when I first tried it, when I was 15, I got 4 exams. And they were English language, English literature, art and history. And I was at an all-boys school, which traditionally teaches boys to do maths, additional maths, physics and chemistry. So they thought I was a girl, I think. But I thought to myself, having not done very much to get to that point, then maybe if I applied myself, I could get other stuff done. So I did, and I passed I retook and passed all the other 7 that I'd got nothing in before, and discovered that I was quite good at being an academic. So I went to university for as long as I possibly could, because I didn't want a job. But eventually they kicked me out, and I had to get this job. And quite by accident, I went into teaching for a very short space of time, and I wasn't very good at teaching children. I think it was because I'd almost got to the point where I'd forgotten how to be one. I mean, obviously early on, my early life, I was one. But you grow up. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it was because I couldn't relate as a 20-year-old to them, but I didn't do it terribly well. I think it was because I didn't feel that I should go that way. Anyway, I left and I joined a bank, a financial services organisation, and I ended up doing pretty much anything that I could. And when they said to me, "Can you write a brochure?" I said yes, and I thought, "What's a brochure?" And so I went off and read one and thought, oh, I can do that. So I wrote one. And then they said, so we have this problem, can you write some code? And I said, yes. What's code? And so I was very bold in those days, and in some respects very lucky too, because in the middle of the 80s, actually, although I worked for, I ran IT, I was a programmer, I worked for the finance department. That makes sense, doesn't it? And then I worked for the marketing department, which doesn't make any sense at all. Anyway, it gave me loads and loads of experience, and as a consequence, when I joined Veritas, I was able to make myself the self-stylized writer. I just put my hand to anything. If I wanted, if they asked me to write a keynote speech, I did that. If they asked me to write, an admin guide, I did that. And certainly for Europe, I became this sort of self-stylized guy, the go-to guy for writing. One of the things that I did at the time was I forced myself to write an article every week in, week out. And sometimes that was about products that I knew about. Sometimes it was about themes that the company that I was with was about, those kind of themes. And sometimes they were about completely separate things. I had a boss who came to me rather nervously and said, my screen's just gone blue. And I said, right, okay. And she had in her hand this big thing, lump, about the size of a cigarette packet. And I said, what's that, Karen? And she said, oh, it's just a piece of metal. And I said, let's have a look. It was a massive, great magnet which she'd put on top of her laptop. So you know what happened next. Anyway, then I joined product management and had some fantastic insights into the way that engineering now builds products. But one of the things that became absolutely true was that you can write a couple of million words for a company, but if they don't get out the door, it's been a waste of time. Somebody estimated that I've written for the company 3 million words, which I think is probably a little bit of an exaggeration. Actually, of course, what I've done is I've taken 20,000 words and rearranged them in 3 million different ways. That's really what's happened, isn't it? But, so what's the learning here? The learning here is you can do anything if you try and you work hard at it. Now, there are going to be some exceptions to the rules. I thought when I was 16 that I was rubbish at maths. If you ask my children what they think that I am good at, they say being grumpy and mathematics. Secondly, be bold. You can do You know, if you're bold, people give you, you know, you're confident, people will give you responsibility that you might not get if you just do your job. And this is a key one, work with the company. So when I first joined financial services, I had a marvelous time. The culture understood me. I didn't feel, you know, out of water at any point. Then after I left them, I spent 5 years going from company to company. My CV looked like war zone. I'd been here 6 months here and, you know, 2 years there, and I thought, I've got to get a few years under my belt. And then I joined Veritas, and 15 years later, here I still am. But it is about a cultural thing. If you find that you're in a company where you feel like you're fighting all the time, and don't misunderstand a cultural change with the fact that all companies are dysfunctional, because we are so diverse and we are different and we're different people. And so, you know, if you are at odds, find one that you fit into, because fitting is absolutely important. And then finally, it's certainly in IT, is that everything changes all of the time. You know, we're not in this industry for continuity. Occasionally we suffer from change fatigue, I think is probably the best way of putting it. But generally speaking, everything changes. You know, if you think about it, we're sending our children, if we send our kids to school this year, they're going to be retiring in 2075. We haven't got the faintest idea what's going to happen in 5 years' time. So, to go back to what Aditya was saying earlier, is that this is about being diverse. It is about research. If you try to be good at any one product, you'll probably be able to dive into that and be good at it. But if you want to be a technical writer, you have to be able to research. I've got these 2 books here. I wrote all of this on an aeroplane, and this is more of a textbook and much harder to write. So I had to write 15,000 words on compliance, which you can imagine is really exciting. But I don't remember anything about them, really. You know, it was research. I do, of course, a little bit. And I could probably talk about it for half an hour, but certainly not, you know, 100,000 words worth of it. Okay, so I think this is very much about communication. Going back to your Shakespeare at the beginning, Shakespeare said, he was very, very specific about what he said. He never said thing twice. So if he did say something twice, for God's sake, pay attention, because it's important. Okay, so communication is about simplicity. The brightest people in the world that I have ever met, and I've met a lot of people, the brightest people are the people who make things simple, not the people who make it complicated. Right? Do you recognize this? Because this happens to me all the time. I'm only the lowly technical writer. Actually, I think that you are the most important people on the planet, because you can sell as much software as you like, but if no one knows how to use it, or what it does, or how to access it, or how to mend it if it breaks, or how to upgrade it, or do all the things that we tell people how to do, if they don't know how to do that, it's an absolute waste of time. Okay? So the other thing, of course, is that if you're going to communicate, you've got to make sure that you communicate in a way that people understand you. And the danger, or rather, not the danger, the hang-up that we have, the handicap that we have, rather, as writers, is that most communication, 80% of communication, is through body language and intonation. But you don't have either of those when you're a writer. So punctuation becomes really powerful. And as an ex-English student, of course, I would say that, wouldn't I? However, no, don't stop. Does that mean no, don't stop? Or does that mean no, don't stop? See, it's important. I got this the other day. It didn't take much to find it. It was, I thought, I need an example of some muppet writing to me and not doing it terribly well. And I looked in my junk email, and it was at the top. I have absolutely no idea what these people are asking me. This one's downright stupid. I'm English. You know, if you speak more than 2 languages, you're multilingual, aren't you? Yeah? If you speak 2 languages, you're bilingual. If you speak 1 language, you're British. And it's all about adaptation. You know, everything is changing, the world's changing. I think it's changing at a rate that is absolutely phenomenal. More things have changed in the last 15 years than the previous 60, and in the last 40 years, probably in the last 500. Things are moving at an absolutely extraordinary rate. Like I said earlier, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone in 5 years or 60 years' time. But adaptation means that as a technical writer, we have this thing say, well, that means I'm a writer. Actually, no, you're not. You're a lot more than that, and you have to be a lot more than that. You have to be not only a technical writer or an advanced technical writer or a copy editor or a proofreader. Those are the things that we kind of assume. But you also have to manage that project. So you have to be a project manager, a program manager. You probably have to be a salesman, a business development person. You probably also have to be a marketer. I think marketing, actually, is as important in what we do as the writing of it in the first place, assuming that people can string a sentence together. As I said before, you've got to get this out to people. So think about the whole, you know, from end to end process of getting your piece to the rest of the world, and that's kind of difficult. I'd like to talk a little bit about innovation. One of the dangers, and again, you know, you touched on this, education systems, and God bless the wretched British, but education systems the world over have been built on a premise that they are training clerks for an industrial revolution that finished 150 years ago. And one of the things that we do, and I've, you know, my own experience first as a cricket player and then a musician and then an artist, was my experience is that we are benignly steered away from things that we're good at. And as a consequence, mistakes are stigmatized, and we run our companies like this. So the worst thing that you can do is make a mistake. But if you're going to be inventive, if you're going to be creative, the one thing that we do know is that you've got to be able to accept the fact that there's a possibility you might fail at it. Because without failure, there will not be any creativity. And I can promise you this, if you're not prepared to fail, you will not come up with anything new, ever. So, I'm not suggesting that you just go and blunder your way through life now. That would be silly. No, what I'm suggesting is, you know, hedge your bets and make sure you do short-term things, test things out, run pilots, and if it does fail, get away from it as fast as possible and do something else. In terms of education, and I think that, you know, as technical writers, we are educators. So one of the things that was highly surprising to me was that having gone through, you know, teaching when I was, you know, 26 and not doing it terribly well, I then left that and said, I'm never going to teach ever again, and I've been doing it for the last 30 years. How does that work? So most people's experience of education is like this, and these are not hard numbers, but the formal education is about, in my head, is about 10% of our learning experience. Research is the experimental part. So that's the piece where you go, thank God for Google, but you go off and you do your bit of research. And experience is about 50% of it. So you can use this as a framework, any of you are educators out there, but also think about this as technical writers, is that what we want to do is we want to encourage people to be experimental. And that isn't all about us, but it is about driving that person towards that experimental process, right? And the other thing that you're going to find is that if you try and do this yourself, you're trying to boil the ocean with a small Bunsen burner. You need to be able to franchise this. So work with the business. We have this massive organization behind us now. We take all the credit for it, obviously. But we have this massive organization that feeds us information and feeds us material, and we publish it. So there's a huge output from our own team, but also there's the sales engineers behind us who are inadvertently working for us because they don't even know. So franchise. Appreciate the numbers, and these kind of things absolutely scream at you. There's more people in India and China today than there were in the world when I was born. Which is pretty frightening, actually, isn't it? But we are going to create a phenomenal amount of information this year. In fact, we're going to create more information this year than we have done for the previous 5,000 years, including last year and the year before. And we'll do the same thing next year. When I first did these numbers was 2007. I thought, I just wonder how much we really do create. And I looked it up, and in 2007 it was 135 exabytes, which was a pile of paper from here to the moon. That pile of paper, that pile of paper is now a pile of paper from here to the sun and back again 20 times. We actually ran out of the available storage space within the data center in 2007, and the only reason that data centers didn't fall over at the time is because Moore's law, if you ever know Moore's law, but if you don't, I'll tell you. Moore's law is that storage capacity doubles and the physical size halves every 2 years. If that had not been the case, we would have lost control of all our data in the data centers. So about 14 zettabytes of, if you don't know, the next one is a yottabyte. So you go gigabyte, terabyte, yottabyte. And connectivity is not a problem. Used to be where the two switches at either end of the fiber optics struggled because they couldn't cope with the traffic. But they've been upgraded now. So we can now send down a single strand of fiber, 1 trillion bits of information. That's 150 simultaneous telephone calls per second. So connectivity is not the problem. You're not the only person out there in the world trying to tell people how this works. So I'm going to talk a little bit about collaboration, and then I'm going to show you an example of how not to do it. Very, very quickly, collaboration, you're going to have to find, you can have these slides afterwards, but you're going to find that you're going to be working with all sorts of people, and make sure that you do, because that gives you a much broader perspective on the world. It's not just engineering, it's not just product planners, it's not just technical marketing or product marketing, it's also the technical field, consulting, and so on and so forth. Collaborate with the people around you because they are your biggest resource. The biggest resource in my family is the family, it's not individuals. And then we're going to talk about delivery. Okay. Delivery, I think we're going to go massively mobile. This is an example of an iPad app that one of the guys built in our team. So much information in so many different places, where do you start? And I'll show you the example of how badly to do it in a second. Websites, how do I find something? When you do a Google search, you come back with 50 million hits. And you look at the first 3 and then give up. So actually finding material is going to be a very difficult process. Now, what you can do with this is actually, if I can point there, these little buckets here take you through, and you can present pretty much anything through this app. So this is how to badly do it, and I can't see what I'm doing now, so I'm going to have to guess. British Telecom, my supplier. I pay them the bill every month. They know who I am, presumably, and they know my telephone numbers. And I wanted to buy an extender because 2 of the kids at one end of the house can't get Wi-Fi terribly well. They can't get broadband. So I wanted an extender. So I went and said, I want to buy this thing. And it asked me whether I was not a customer at all, or whether I was a customer, and then it asked me if I was interested in sport. I don't know what that had anything to do with it. Anyway, they did. And I clicked on broadband, because it was a broadband problem, and then I clicked on, stuff, and I thought, okay, BT accessories, that's the one that I want, BT accessories, and it took me here. Well, I've got a router and a hub already, so I don't need one of those. So, okay, so I scrolled back up to the top and it said buy accessories, so I clicked on that. Oh. Okay, now my patience is pretty limited, but so I thought I'm going to go through this, you know, the pain barrier. So I started again, and I went through this, and I clicked on it, and I thought, okay, I'll try this route instead. And then I saw this, and I thought, oh, we're getting somewhere. And it came up with these two. I don't know if you can see it at the back, but I can tell you what it says. For the one on the left, it says I'm a dual band extender and I'm called a 610. And on the right hand side it says I'm an extender and I'm a 300. And then it says I'm really simple to install, and the other one says I'm really simple to install. So I went down here and it says full details. So this is the full details, and I assumed that the difference between the 610 and the 300 was dual band. Wrong. They're both dual band. I've still got no idea the difference between these two products. And I've looked at all the details on BT. That's how not to do it. And we see this day in, day out. So be mindful just of the size and scope of who we're trying to talk to, and the white noise in the background that is trying to drown us out. And everybody who's also competing for that time. I was going to talk about the books a little bit, but we'll do that offline because I've got no time at all. So I'll jump through that. I'll be around all week. Really, I talked about marketing before, but what I want to say is think media. You know, think about taking all this information and putting it in one place so it's very easily accessed. I've talked about those. And I go right back to Shakespeare now. You know, you are human, you are individual, we are diverse. If you read any of these books or any of the articles I've ever written, people who are friends of mine say they can hear me talk. And that's what I want to hear as a consumer of these things. I want to hear you talk. So be human. Thank you.